Welcome to the program here on RT International. We do continue with our breaking news coverage here. Up to 19 people have been injured in the Australian city of Melbourne after a vehicle rammed into them. You're seeing some of the very latest pictures here on the program. Witnesses at the scene say the driver of the car failed to stop at a red light as pedestrians were crossing the road. Police are there. According to the police, they have apprehended the driver. We also understand another man was arrested a little while later. Witnesses in the area there describe bodies flying everywhere when a white car hit the crowd. The centre of the city is currently on lockdown. It's also important to bear in mind this is in a very, very popular shopping district at a time when people were understandably going about doing their Christmas shopping. Of course, the kids are out of school for the Christmas holidays, and so in this very, very busy area, a very surprising incident has occurred. Now, paramedics are still treating the injured at the scene right now as we show you some of the latest pictures, and people have also been taken to hospital. Well, let's discuss this further now. We can bring in Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, a professor and dean of the Jindal School of International Affairs, joining us on the program. Good to see you today. It's sadly those incidents like this where pedestrians are hit by vehicles. It has happened before, but what seems to have changed over the past few years is that whenever we hear such news, we can't help but think of terrorism. What does that signify to you?
Rory, I think there is a general apprehension in the Western world around important Christian holidays like Christmas that's coming up, because the fear is that enemies of Western liberalism as well as of their role in the world will try to wreak havoc and revenge on soft targets like these. Primarily possibly jihadist groups, because the vehemence with which they ram their vehicles into ordinary civilians suggests that this is motivated by hardline Islamist mentality, because it's not possible for someone to simply be deranged and to be going this far and to do it in such a premeditated manner and possibly in a form of a plot involving other co-conspirators. So I think around Christmas last year, we remember there was a Berlin truck attack, and just some time ago there was this attack in Manhattan in New York in a similar fashion. There was the famous one.
Oh, Dr. Chaulia, Rory Suchet here in Moscow. I think we've lost the signal here. We're going to try and re-establish this. Dr. Sreeram Chaulia of the Jindal School of International Affairs. We will re-establish the connection here on the channel. Just one moment, Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, Rory Suchet, can you hear me?
Yes, Rory, yeah.
I'm so glad we've got you back on the line here. I wanted to ask you, though, obviously it's early days yet. No one has said this is terror-related. However, if indeed it does turn out that this is a terror-related incident, what kind of response would you expect from Australian authorities today?
Rory, Australia is already a major player in the war against ISIS in Iraq and Syria. It's one of the largest troop contributors. It's also had a hand in countering Islamist extremism and jihadism in Southeast Asia. In the Philippines, for example, where there was an important siege of Marawi in Mindanao recently involving ISIS-affiliated groups, Australia offered a lot of support to the Philippine government for counter-terrorism operations. Likewise in Indonesia and Malaysia. So Australia has been seen as a major force in the Asia-Pacific region and beyond, even in the Middle East, that is pushing its way to smash the centers of ISIS and Al-Qaeda and other related groups. So it wouldn't be surprising if there is a mass sentiment in Australia to actually increase and double down on the strategy of being part of global coalitions to try and crush this menace to civilization. I think generally people respond to these kind of attacks not by bowing their heads and saying, let's withdraw from this whole messy thing, but rather to try and, to charge up and to actually show the jihadists that there's no way that we will back down after this kind of outrageous incident, which is likely to be a terrorist incident. So I think Australia will try and strengthen its role as a force for moderation and against extreme Islamist fervor around the world. It will also have to look inward as well especially if this incident is proven to be a jihadist one, then they will have to look at their homegrown migrant community and also the whole multiculturalism, which has been very center of Australia's identity, and their approach to immigration, which anyway has been very hardline, but may even become even more fortified after these kind of incidents. So we will have to see if they will see a link between this and what has happened in New York and what has happened in European cities over the last few years, and then see that they are part of some kind of a imperial West, a democratic, liberal democratic West that is unable to somehow respond forcefully and robustly, and they may have to change their approach altogether.
All right, so as we're talking here, Dr. Chaulia, we're showing us some of the very latest pictures now from Melbourne. It's about 7 minutes past 7 in the evening there. At this point, no one is saying that this is terror-related. However, clearly, as you and me have been discussing this, the issues of lone wolf attacks are something that people are saying has become a bit of a trend now. We understand that the police are speaking to the media. They have reportedly described the incident as a deliberate act, but they also say the motivations are still unknown, that it's too early. Asked whether or not they can rule out a terror attack, the police have said at this stage it's early days in the investigation and the true motivation is unknown. Witnesses in the area, Dr. Chaulia, they described bodies flying as this white vehicle, pictured right there, was ploughing through pedestrians as they were crossing a very busy thoroughfare, I suppose partially at the peak of their Christmas time shopping as well. If indeed this does turn out to be terror-related, is there any way, Dr. Chaulia, that the countries and cities in particular can safeguard against this kind of incident?
Well, I think what is important is that the citizens and the law enforcement work very closely in identifying potential radical elements in their societies. Sometimes some of these Western societies, including Australia, have shied away from probing too deeply into networks that are, cancerous networks that are rising up in front of their own eyes. And there are these no-go areas in some parts of Europe, for example, where, they have been far too tolerant. So I think they will have to rethink their basic, strategy. And at the same time, they will also need to look at the communications networks. As I said before, it's possible that there is a link between jihadist groups in Southeast Asia, like Philippines or Indonesia, and what is happening in Australia, and of course further afield in the Middle East. Australia should not, I think, ever back away from its counterterrorism role in the wider arena, because that will be sending a message to the jihadists that, we will succeed by hurting them. Rather, Australia will need to fortify its role internationally. But domestically, I think the real challenge for them will be to overcome the limitations which are often imposed on law enforcement and on intelligence agencies in these states in the name of human rights and liberalism. I think that is, it seems like most of the liberal democratic states have a weakness which the jihadists are exploiting or other extremists are exploiting, and therefore they have to reorganize the balance between the state and the society. It seems like the so-called authoritarian or semi-authoritarian countries have a better track record in blunting these menace more than these democracies. So I think a country like Australia, or for that matter the USA, which was recently attacked in Manhattan, France, Germany, all these countries really need to rethink the basic social contract between citizens and the state, and think about how the state should be playing its original intended role, which is as a protector of the liberties and lives of its citizens, which it seems to be failing repeatedly because of this chaos that is spreading in these countries.
Well, it's now 10 minutes past 7 in the evening in Melbourne, Australia, and police are describing this incident as a, quote, deliberate act. Dr. Sreeram Chaulia, Professor and Dean of the Jindal School of International Affairs, thank you very much for your insight. Thank you. Well, this